You're listening to Arcane Carolinas, an exploration of the Carolinas' folklore, legends, myths, and modern weird. Each episode, we examine the historical context of our topic and aim to preserve some of the stories that help make this part of the world such a fascinating place. Hello and welcome to Arcane Carolinas. We'd like to first thank our backers on Patreon for picking today's topic.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear about this because I remember when this was a news story a few years ago, but I don't really know anything about it. And it touches on one of my favorite parts of Raleigh weirdness.
Yeah. I originally wanted the title to be like, The Raleigh Blob. Slime molds, gelatinous cubes, and you. But then I realized that would look terrible in all the podcast feeds. So we're just going to call it the Raleigh Blob.
That's fair.
Also, before we get started, I'd like to thank all the people that have been reaching out to us through social media, through email, sending us notes. It's been really cool building a little community and hearing people's stories and sharing stories. And along those lines, we recently heard from a group called Antler Hill Arts. They describe themselves as musical storytellers with artistic endeavors. And they have done some pretty cool things lately, including making a record of songs based on Carolina folklore.
Really?
Yeah. They apparently do the convention circuit when fandom conventions are going on, when we're not in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
So I really look forward to bumping into them at one of those events.
Yeah, that'd be super fun.
They raise awareness also about stuttering in an effort to reduce bullying. And as someone that has seen how speech pathology and awareness can help people that stutter, I think that's pretty great.
Yeah. One of my best friends in college, one of my fraternity brothers, has always struggled with a stutter and has had a lot of speech therapy. Knowing that there are people who are trying to raise awareness about that is fantastic.
Yeah. So Antler Hills Arts, thank you for getting in touch. And I hope this gets some people to check you out.
Yeah.
All right. So the Raleigh Blob is obviously in Raleigh, which is located in Wake County, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Do a quick blast through some history of Wake County, originally part of the Tuscarora Nation before settlers arrived, European settlers. And the Tuscarora Nation has some really cool folklore and legends unique to it. And we would just like to shout out again to anybody that might be an expert and able to speak to those. We would love to have you on. We just don't feel comfortable presenting ourselves as a source on Native American folklore and legends.
Yeah, Tuscarora is a name that people hear a lot growing up around here, but I don't know anything about their culture. I don't know anything about their descendants. Are they still around? Are they a recognized tribe? Are they recognized as by the state or by the federal government? I would love to know all those things, but I am a guy who really should not try to claim to be an expert about that.
So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you are an expert, we'd love to hear from you. Wake County was formed, we covered this a little bit in an earlier episode. We mentioned Wake County. It was formed by cobbling together pieces of Cumberland, Johnson, and Orange. So sort of a, we need a new county. All right, We'll break off pieces of these. A fact that I found to be very interesting about it is that it's the most populous county in all of the Carolinas.
Oh, I would absolutely believe that.
That surprised me. I don't know which one would be bigger because I'm not super familiar with South Carolina counties. I just figured somewhere there'd be something bigger, but nope, it's Wake.
Yeah, it would be reasonable to expect Mecklenburg County to be the most populous because Charlotte is there, except that Charlotte is enormous. And what we think of as Charlotte, quote unquote, is much larger than Mecklenburg County geographically and has a lot of people who are in South Carolina and in different counties in North Carolina and things like that.
The Charlotte metro area.
Yeah.
Or whatever the front of the phone book would say. That is the second reference to a phone book that we have made on this podcast.
We're showing our age.
Yeah, that's. Wake County is also home to the largest surrender of the Civil War. It occurred following the Battle of Morrisville.
That's wild.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a strip mall there in its honor.
Yeah, probably. And now, it's the dead Prime Outlets. Morrisville is really interesting. I don't know if this will survive editing, but Morrisville is a really interesting place to visit because there is an exceptionally tiny original Morrisville that's maybe 4 or 5 blocks of really beautiful older houses that are obviously old farmhouses from when it was the village at the center of a bunch of farmland. And then there's the Research Triangle Park and all of the different office plazas and gas stations and strip malls that have filled in everything else and become the tax base of the town of Morrisville. Like apartment complexes, just chock-a-block with, whatever gas stations. In the heart of it, there is this tiny little interesting old farmhouses part of Morrisville that you can drive through in about 12 seconds and is worth it.
I think that should absolutely make the cut. I did not know that. I think of Morrisville as like a Sim City. Remember Sim City?
Yeah, totally.
Build your little town. Like I just okay, and I need this, and then I need this, and then I need this, and you would just like put them all in a row and then like do another row of the same. And that's not a knock against Morrisville. It's just that's my perception of it.
I only found it because I got lost while looking for the strip mall where the Indian restaurant that I was trying to go to is supposed to be.
We recently had a friend move to the area and we were trying to fill them in on like, oh, well, what is there to do? It's like, well, right now there's not a whole lot to do given the current circumstances. But once that is not the case, you need to unhinge from your perception that awesome things can't exist in strip malls because they do around here.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Find great gaming stores, for instance.
So, I'll make a joke about a strip mall, but, there's good things there.
Mark, just in case Big Strip Mall came for him.
Big Strip Mall. Heard you've been talking smack on open air retail.
Oh, man.
Going to need to have a word with you. The Wake County is also home to a lot of really great parks. Some of my favorite parks in the area. It's got some good museums. It's home of the Carolina Hurricanes, the Carolina Mudcats. Two of my favorite local businesses in Wake County are Slim's Downtown in Raleigh, which is just a little dive bar. It's great. You can catch some good music there when, it's not what we're dealing with. That is like the third reference to it that I've made. So, man, they sure are talking about that current situation a lot. No, but Slim's Downtown in Raleigh is a great bar. If you like live music, it's a place to catch some good bands. Probably my favorite local business is the Raleigh Flea Market. It's pretty hit or miss.
The State Fairgrounds Flea Market?
Yeah, it's pretty hit or miss. The indoor section, people know what they have and they charge accordingly. The outdoor section where, anybody can get a table and it's not like a business that is set up there every week, you can find some pretty cool stuff. I actually got a copy of The Goonies 2 on Nintendo when I was a kid from the Raleigh State Fairgrounds Flea Market.
Wow.
And that kind of put it in this special place in my heart because I loved the Goonies. I loved that game. And I got it from the flea market with my mom. It was like, the big box of games. And the guy's like, these ones are this much and that one's this much and whatever. And they had a Nintendo and a TV set up. So he would show you that, yes, they worked. And my mom was like, all right, you can get one from that box. I was like, whoa, there's a Goonies game. And I got it. And it was amazing. Would you like to plug a local business or two from Wake County?
Favorite local businesses in Wake County? They've got to be things like Flex, which is a really great bar if you just want to get a drink and be surrounded by some nice people. Depending on the night you go, it can be complicated because they also do a really, I'm trying to think of the right term to use for it, a self-consciously iffy drag night. That one's a lot of fun. And Wicked Witch is a great bar, great dance club, really fun place to go. They do different themed nights when things are normal. Fingers crossed that Wicked Witch survives. And Father and Son Antiques, which is a really fun antiques place in downtown Raleigh. Just a fun place to go browse.
Are any of those in Cameron Village by chance that you named?
No, I haven't been to Cameron Village in a long time. But Cameron Village has an interesting history of its own.
And that's where we're going today. Right now,
Excellent.
We are headed to the Cameron Village section of Raleigh. It's a planned community. I think it's like the original planned community in Raleigh.
It is.
And it used to be home to a really cool underground nightlife space where it was like the subterranean collection of venues and bars. And a lot of musicians have played locally famous shows in that space, which is now empty. There was a tour of it. There was some sort of fundraiser for charity where, you could buy a ticket to this event for $80 or something. And they opened the doors for one night and you could go down there and see it. So it's apparently mothballed and it's this really cool underground venue.
See, that's the part of Cameron Village that I find really interesting because I remember when someone I knew who worked in Cameron Village found the door that went into, or one of the doors to the underground, and then discovered that existed at a time when people had stopped even thinking about the fact that it existed.
It feels very much like in a video game like Skyrim or something where you crack open the stone seal. A rush of air comes out and dust and cobwebs. What's in this cave?
Yeah.
And what is also underground Cameron Village is the Raleigh Blob.
Okay. The fact that it's a thing that has a name just fascinates me.
The story so far. In the summer of 2009, there was a South Carolina-based construction company, Marfus Construction, that was contracted to come and inspect the sewer system underneath of Cameron Village. The sewer system in Cameron Village, the pipes date back to 1949 when they were originally run. So they had some issues, needed remediation, needed inspected. This company was hired. So they were running cameras down and kind of like scoping it out. And they came across a slimy, gelatinous, blobby, undulating, fleshy looking object that responded to light.
Okay. It was bad when you said undulating.
It's disgusting.
Sentence just got worse. That sentence just got worse from there.
It's this undulating, fleshy slime blob. You can look at the video on YouTube. I'm not going to look at it now because I looked at it enough while prepping for this, and it's really gross. Some people made funny ones where they like make it talk.
I'm going to look up some of those and put them in the show notes.
This contractor did what any responsible contractor would do and immediately put it up on YouTube.
God bless him.
With, we found this in Cameron Village, like named where it was, and just puts this disgusting video up where it proceeded to rack up immediately millions of views and make international news.
I think it's worth noting that Cameron Village has a reputation as being a ritzy people neighborhood.
Yeah, I can't live there.
Yeah, there's no way I'm ever going to buy a house in Cameron Village.
I got a haircut there once. I needed a haircut really bad, and there was a barber shop, and we were over that way, and I like popped in and got a haircut, and I was reminded of why I have no interest in living in Cameron Village. Haircut was fine. It just cost about twice what it would elsewhere. It's not generally where I go when I need anything.
Yeah.
So,
but okay, you also said that it responded to light. Is that something you're going to talk more about, or do I need to stop and ask questions?
No, let's talk about that. Yeah, we're going to get real personal and gross right now.
Yeah.
So I had a polyp inside of my head up blocking one of my sinus passages. And the way this was determined was they shoved a scope up there and it had a little light on it, right? And so they took a picture of it, pull the scope out, print the picture. Oh, we found why you keep getting these awful sinus infections. It's because this polyp has blocked this passage. We need to remove it. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's what the footage looks like. If you've ever seen anybody get a camera put in them, like searching for things, that's what it looks like until they get to this thing and it starts moving when the light hits it.
That is very distressing. Like, that is very like sci-fi horror kind of vibes, big alien vibes from that there.
This entire episode has big sci-fi vibes.
Okay.
I don't even know how. So this is a modern weird, but also a cryptid, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit of both. It can be both. Also, I need to ask, when you say that it responded to light and they have video of this happening, is that something that just happened once by coincidence, or is this something where they like do the sci-fi movie thing of they turn the light off, they turn the light on, they turn the light off, they turn the light on? Like, how sure are we that it responded to light?
Yeah, no, they kept messing with it. It's minutes of footage.
Oh.
And the people that uploaded the video and they talked to even said, they're like, yeah, no, it reacted when we would poke it. It reacted when the light would hit it. They definitely did the 1950s sci-fi, like, I don't know, poke it again.
That is very distressing.
Like when you see a monkey find a coconut and it's just like, oh, what's this? And just like smacks it against something, like, oh, let's try that again. And tries it again, tries it again. That's basically what they were doing with the camera. They were just like, oh, this is weird. Let's put it on the internet. I'm sure the people that hired them were thrilled about that.
Sure.
So the fun really begins when Marty Gibson, the environmental coordinator for public utilities in the city of Raleigh, responds to initial inquiries from the press with, it's a slime mold. Be assured our water treatment facilities are top-notch and will keep things safe and sanitary. That's a direct quote. So Marty Gibson says, it's a slime mold. Now, slime molds are really wild creatures. They're not actually fungi. They're a single-cell organism that can bind together with other single-cell organisms of its own kind to form a collective creature. And it looks like a mold. Have you ever seen that like dog vomit mold on grass or growing on mulch? It's called dog vomit. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Okay, I'll send you a picture after the episode. You'll say, oh, I've seen that. It looks like mold. It looks like a fungus.
Kind of a lichen?
It's more raised than that. You remember Nickelodeon Gak?
Yeah.
It looks like Gak.
Oh, okay.
Like just laying on the yard. I'm sure you've seen it in the forest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like patches of basically green fuzz, as though somebody had laid a green fuzzy napkin across a trunk.
Except that it's orange or yellow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. You see this on rotting trees in the woods all the time.
Yep. It can move. Slime molds can move. In labs, there have been documented cases of a slime mold escaping a petri dish.
I feel like this is something they don't tell people in science class so that people will still become scientists.
It's like a blob, like a sci-fi horror blob. They feed on dead stuff and they very slowly blob around. They can change shape and even the different functions. Like it will grow a stalk to like touch something. Like a bunch of the single cell organisms, the collective will be like, okay, we need a stalk to reach out that way and see what's there. And it'll like... Yeah.
This is very distressing. Oh my gosh. Now it's more like The Thing, John Carpenter's movie.
But then, as soon as Marty realized that Cameron Village is a private planned community and this line wasn't her problem, she immediately walks that statement back. Immediately releases the following statement. The video was taken in a private sewer system by a private contractor working for them. It does not belong to the city of Raleigh, nor will it reach the Neuse River wastewater treatment plant. This is the response from our director. The video is of the private sanitary sewer in Cameron Village, taken by a private contractor, not by our staff. The blob has been identified as others as worms.
What? Like a big ball of worms?
Yep. So they're like, nothing to see here, not our problem, we're out. By the way, we were wrong, it's worms. And they just say, identified by others. Are we talking like a yarn ball of worms? Or like a rat king of worms? Or like Yes, exactly. That's Marty's statement on the behalf of her director.
That's extremely... The face I'm making, the face I just made, anyway, is not great radio. I keep forgetting that expressions don't really convey. Suffice to say, I am shocked to silence by the idea that it would be basically a rat king of worms.
So... NC State University is right around the corner.
Yeah, they've got a giant school of veterinary medicine. They've got a bunch of scientists there.
Home of the wolf pack and a biologist named Thomas Quack.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's right. That's Dr. Quack to you.
I feel like this is proof that we live in a simulation and that it has gone off the rails.
So Dr. Quack... Dr. Quack says...
Bless his heart. It's not my name to have opinions about, but I feel like if I were going to be in a line of work where people would refer to me as doctor, I would at least, I don't know. It's
pronounced Quack.
Yeah, exactly. Something. I don't know. Anything.
Dr. Quack said that it was thousands of tiny organisms called birozoans or moss animalcules. So I had to look that up because I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
They're little invertebrates that bunch together in a colony. And they feed using like little like tentacles. They can look blobby. There's a lot more structure to the examples that I saw, and I recognize them from videos of people scuba diving.
Okay.
People scuba diving next to a coral reef. Looks like half a basketball stuck on the side of the coral reef.
Okay, sure.
Those are apparently birozoans. I'm sure Dr. Quack would hate my description of them as appearing like half a basketball. But here we are. It's not his show.
He can get his own podcast.
So that was interesting, but I was like, I don't know. Let me keep reading what other people said, because that was not the final answer. Dr. Timothy S. Wood, an expert on freshwater birozoa and an officer with the International Birozoology Association, said, this is a quote, "No, these are not birozoans, ! These are clumps of annelid worms, almost certainly tubificids," and then the Latin genus Tubifex. Normally, these occur in soil and sediment, especially at the bottom and edges of polluted streams. In this photo, they have apparently entered a pipeline somehow, and in the absence of soil, they are coiling around each other. The contractions you see are the result of a single worm contracting and then stimulating all the others to do the same almost simultaneously, so that it looks like a single big muscle contracting.
Okay.
So this is where it gets super sci-fi, right? Because you've got no one can agree, the government disavows knowledge, and then the scientists start arguing.
Yeah, totally. I feel like, God, it feels awfully relevant. But that's all I'm going to say on that. I feel like the repeated use of the term contractions, everything about this is so organic. All of the language that these people are using describes body parts rather than bodies. And we're recording this in the spooky times, and we've been watching a bunch of horror movies, and I am in the right mindset to be really wigged out by the idea of like these tubifids or whatever they are. I've probably just said it even worse. Although I will note Tubifex is obviously my favorite Conan villain. But the fact that there are so many of them that they are clumped together in the absence of soil, that's really horrifying. Really, really horrifying to picture.
It was never definitively determined what it is. The company, the construction company, said, oh, well, we've been assured that there is no danger to anyone and it's not blocking the pipe completely. We're going to move on from this now. And that was it.
Who can blame them? Who among us would not have said, you know what? Done.
So I have a theory that kind of like the alligators in the sewer story, somebody flushed something down the toilet or dumped something down a drain.
Okay.
Like maybe they had an exotic aquarium, right? They're keeping a little bit more than just goldfish or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And they flush something down the drain and it sticks. Have you ever gone tunneling? Like, are you into that at all? We've never really talked about that.
I would love to have gone like steam tunnel exploring.
Yeah,
I would love to have, but I never had the chance.
Or even storm drains. There was this one storm drain that I really liked exploring when I was younger. It had a bunch of rebar in the front, so you weren't supposed to get in there, but somebody had cut it at some point. Right. I mean, it must have run for maybe even a mile underneath of an area where there was a lot of concrete and asphalt and all these little feeder drains that like eventually hit this one main pipe. So if it hadn't been raining and wasn't supposed to be raining, it was probably still dangerous because of mold and fungus and potential for blobs. But we were young and dumb, and we would go in there anyway and walk around and like see how deep the graffiti went and explore the different tunnels. And we were really into that and had a lot of fun. But there's all these nooks and crannies and like weird things, weird neon colored slimes growing out of crevices. I completely can buy that somebody dumped something down the drain that got caught up in one of these crevices and it began to reproduce and created this thing.
Yeah.
I am not Dr. Quack and not Dr. Timothy S. Wood, officer with the International Biozoology Association. So I'm not trying to claim to be a biologist, have any expert insight beyond what I could find on the internet, but that's my theory.
Yeah. I mean, like all of my squicky initial reactions to the sort of slimy, gross, recoiling at the light that has been shined upon it kind of reactions, all of that aside, the fact of the matter is that this is very likely some form of wildlife and it's something that is naturally occurring and it's not hurting anything. And so I say good on them for leaving it where it is rather than destroying something that's not hurting anybody and might be interesting scientifically, might be some sort of biologically unique or rare circumstance. So I think it's great that they left it. I legitimately think it's great that they left it, and I think they made the right choice there, morally and ethically.
Your statement just lined up with a pop culture example I was going to give of Star Trek, the original series, the Horde. It's a burrowing blob creature.
I think that's a great example to go with. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go for it.
No, that's it. I just saying that. I'm like, well, haven't seen my notes, but that feeds perfectly into this pop culture example of like, sometimes it's best just to leave it alone. And that episode is that. There's other pop culture examples that are somewhat relevant to the story, like in Halo, in the Halo series, there's these creatures called hunters, which are giant colonies of worms wearing an armor suit, walking around shooting guns.
But there was a He-Man villain like that who was, he was 45 snakes in a suit of armor.
King Hiss. I had King Hiss.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was awesome. He had like a human suit that clicked over the snake body. And if you took the human suit off, it was a snake for each arm, a snake for the head, and like a couple of snakes for the body. But getting away from the colony approach or the singular organism of a burrowing blob creature of Star Trek, I would never want to touch something like that because of the Blob, the original and the 80s remake.
Yeah, no thanks.
Basically just that and Dungeons and Dragons gelatinous cubes have instilled this fear of blob creatures.
Yeah.
That didn't Didn't prevent me from urban exploring when I was younger, but now that I'm old enough to know better, I'm like, oh, there is no reason to be exposed to these things.
They could not have paid me to get in that drain. There is not enough money. They could have paid me to go poke that. There's no way I would touch it with my bare skin because it's probably going to transmit something to me or I'm going to transmit something to it. It's probably just not going to be good for either of us.
You could join the colony. You could become one with it.
Well, and I was going to say, like, if I were going to write this into a novel, and now I really want to, then it would probably be a thing that developed out of kind of like you said with the stories of alligators in the sewers. It would probably be something that resulted from a really unfortunate confluence of things getting flushed down toilets and washed down drains that should not be. Like, let's say almost Batman, the original Batman movie style. That there was some sort of accident or a mistake made on the part of a popular personal hygiene company that makes shampoos and body washes. And it turns out that there's something bad in those that when combined in the right quantities produces a new life form. And the people who make it figure that out and they decide to change their formulas and they slap new formula, on all the bottles so that they're not selling this stuff anymore. But they also convince themselves that it's so unlikely that this is going to happen in exactly the right way, in the right place and time with the right temperature and moisture conditions, that they don't need to do expensive things like a recall. And then what you get is this living in the sewers, and anybody who touches it becomes colonized by it and becomes sort of rewritten into being a part of it. And they become essentially independent pods of this organism walking around living their lives. And so you get to combine a whole bunch of really fun concepts like the invasion of the body snatchers and all kinds of good stuff.
That's all I had for the Raleigh Blob. I did want to thank our Patreon backers again for voting to pick this topic. A shout out to everybody that's sent us little notes and stories. It's really cool. We're excited to get into Arcane Carolinas case files here soon, where we're going to talk to paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So this was over a decade ago, though. Has anybody done a follow-up on that? Is it still there?
No, there's been no follow-up, just some videos on YouTube, and, they left it down there. So I'd like to imagine a world where it escapes into the underground at Cameron Village and comes up through the Whole Foods or Fresh Foods or whatever it's called. And comes like rampaging through.
I want it to come up out of the sewers and basically adapt to society and then become the thing that everybody thinks is sort of the Otis the Town Drunk of Cameron Village, because they don't realize that it's the Blob having taken bipedal form.
Oh, that's just the Blob. It's blobbing around.
That guy, he's always passed out under a tree or whatever. They haven't figured that out. It'd be a lot of fun. Maybe I need to use that instead as a story concept. Yeah, I don't have anything to add because I did not know coming into this anything other than the fact that this thing once was discovered and have always wondered what happened to it since.
And no one could agree what it is, what it was. All they can agree is where it is or where it was. And I like to think it's still down there doing all right.
Yeah, I hope it's great. In my head, I have the Lucille Bluth gif of her nodding and holding up her glass and saying, good for her.
Until next time, we are Arcane Carolinas, and we really appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Don't flush anything down the toilet that you don't want to live in your sewers. I'm probably going to cut that.
You've been listening to Arcane Carolinas. Thanks for joining us. If you liked it, give us a rating, leave a comment. If you didn't like it, send us an email and tell us why. If you're not wrong, we'll try to fix it.
And if you're interested in award-winning speculative fiction, including science fiction, urban fantasy, and horror, find me, Michael G. Williams, at www.michaelgwilliamsbooks.com and check out Falstaff Books at falstaffbooks.com.
If you'd like to pick up some Arcane Carolinas merch, look at behind-the-scenes info, pictures, videos, stuff like that, all the things that get cut, check out arcanecarolinas.com, where you can get access to our Patreon, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, all that in one place, including the merch store. Buy a shirt.
Clothe your body.
Drape your body in our wares.
Be our living billboards.